Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, March 16th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect a high of 78 degrees under mostly cloudy skies in San Antonio today. The presence of antibodies, proteins in a patient's immune system that fight off infections, tell researchers that those individuals had contracted the coronavirus in recent months. According to a study from Texas Department of Health Services and UT Health, as many as a quarter of Texas residents have COVID-19 antibodies. In an update to the situation at the Texas-Mexico border, the U.S. government plans to use the Texas Convention Center to hold up to 3,000 immigrant teenagers, as sharply higher numbers of border crossings have severely strained the current capacity to hold youths. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. The gold standard for transporting human organs has been the same for decades, an igloo cooler. Once a recipient has been identified, the organ is surgically removed from the donor's body in an operating room and placed in a Ziploc bag with preservation solution. It's put into 2 more plastic bags and placed on a bed of ice in a mini ice chest, much like you'd ice down a 6-pack for a short trip. Leon Bunyan, a retired anesthesiology university professor in San Antonio, has worked on this problem for the past 40 years in his academic lab and may have found the solution. Laura Garcia has more on his device, which is about the same size as a 6-pack cooler, but uses considerably more advanced technology. In a city lacking stable housing for the homeless, February's record cold exposed the vulnerability and shortages of options for those living in a tent camp under Interstate 37. That encampment was bulldozed a week before the storm hit. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has advised governments to avoid raising homeless camps during the pandemic because that can scatter people into the community and spread the coronavirus. The city of San Antonio followed that guidance until June. From June to February, the city cleared 151 camps, an average of almost 4 sweeps every week. The city has spent at least $189,000 on 80 sweeps since last fall. Marina Starleaf Riker and Liz Hardaway follow one woman's fight to survive and discuss the problems facing San Antonio's homeless men and women. The blame game over the state's faulty electrical grid is creating a rare public rift between 2 top Republicans in state government that could have major financial impact on some utility companies and their customers. First, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick on Friday blasted Governor Greg Abbott's newest appointee to oversee the state's utility system for a lack of competence and questionable integrity. Then on Monday, Patrick pushed legislation to force Abbott appointee Arthur DeAndrea and the State Public Utility Commission he leads to reverse billions of dollars of power overcharges, something that both DeAndrea and Abbott have said is beyond its authority. We have everything you need to know about the dispute and what's at its core over at expressnews.com. For members of the Monday Squad, the memorial service at 11:15 a.m. at Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery had the look of just about any other, especially given that they already had honored 6 other veterans that morning. But the ceremony for Army Sergeant Jose Ruben Lopez was different in one way. He was the 40,000th veteran the Memorial Service Detachment had helped bury since its creation nearly 30 years ago, and the 10 veterans who made up the squad knew why it mattered. Head over to expressnews.com to read Sid Christensen's latest story from the nation's 9th largest national cemetery. San Antonio officials are providing a clear view of the city's COVID-19 outbreak as the virus continues to spread. A surveillance dashboard now reveals the number of active coronavirus cases in each Bexar County zip code. For more data on the coronavirus in San Antonio, visit the city's website or the San Antonio Express News COVID-19 tracker. We also have updates on when and where Texans can get the COVID vaccine. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. A man with chronic health conditions was found dead this month at a San Antonio Housing Authority complex with his heat and oven running after a foul stench was reported in the building. A grand jury has indicted a former Bexar County detention officer, a former nurse at the jail's medical facility, and an inmate on charges of organized crime connected to a smuggling operation there. Face masks are no longer required at the Alamo. The Alamo Trust Board of Directors decided to drop mandatory mask rules, but only for visitors. Employees still have to wear face masks. The positivity rate for coronavirus infections in San Antonio increased by 3 percentage points Monday, returning to 5.6%. That's where it was at the beginning of the month. Other indicators continue to show signs of improvement. Texas Republican leaders are preparing for another purge of suspected non-citizen voters, vowing to be more careful and avoid the mistakes from 2 years ago when the state threatened to knock nearly 60,000 legal voters off election rolls. Businesses in downtown San Antonio were busy over the weekend as families visited for the last few days of spring break. Read Madison Eisler's latest Skyline column for more on the flickers of hope for downtown businesses. San Antonio police have released video footage in hopes of identifying 3 people in connection with a fatal shooting of 44-year-old Kevin Clifton at a Westside IHOP on Saturday. A judge has agreed to reduce by 2/3 the $2.3 million bail under which Air Force Major Andre McDonald has been held for more than a year and a half, accused of killing his wife and hiding the evidence. City Manager Eric Walsh has promoted the city's chief spokesman and a senior economic development official to fill a pair of vacancies on his executive team. The changes were necessitated by the pending departure of 2 assistant city managers. A city-county collaborative focused on reducing domestic violence in Bexar County launched about 10 initiatives in its first year, including a pilot program to identify victims most at risk of being killed, according to a 1-year report released Monday. Officials say there's more work to do. The price direction for crude oil this week could be influenced largely by refinery activity along the Gulf Coast and the impact of the latest stimulus package, analysts said. The Barshop Jewish Community Center, which housed and bankrolled the Sheldon Wexler Theater, has decided it will remain closed for the foreseeable future. The theater, which opened in 1999, had a devoted following and a reputation for high-quality work. The Express News editorial board writes, quote, "The Greenway system is a jewel. It's one of the best investments of public funds the community has ever made, and it must be completed and expanded, circling and connecting San Antonio." When Samuel Schumann Sam Hernandez sold shoes, it was an art. Hernandez always wore a dapper suit, tie, and shoes buffed to a shine. He'd greet customers, most of them women, and help them choose a flattering shoe style. He'd measure feet to gauge accurate sizes with a flat metal tool called a Brannock device. He would then bring several shoe boxes from the stockroom, each bearing a different style and color. For nearly 6 decades, Hernandez's livelihood was selling shoes to clients he catered to with style and savoir-faire. He would have liked to keep going, but the rise of online shopping, coupled with the coronavirus pandemic, which forced him to shut his store down for 3 months last year, prompted him to retire and close the doors for good on November 30th. Vincent T. Davis has his story over at expressnews.com. One day they're rock hard, and the next mushy and black. Paul Stephen explains how to take control over one of San Antonio's most necessary staples, how to speed up and slow down the ripening of your avocados. From St. Patrick's Day dinner to leftovers for breakfast and lunch, we have how to cook that corned beef brisket over at expressnews.com. According to a source confirmed on Monday, San Antonio FC forward Jose Gallegos is traveling to Germany for a 2-week assessment with Bayern Munich. See who earned Player of the Week honors and check out an updated Express News area rankings for softball, baseball, girls soccer, and boys soccer. With a bracket set and protocols in place, teams will begin arriving in San Antonio on Tuesday in advance of an unprecedented NCAA women's basketball tournament. 3 trips to the injured list, including a bout with COVID-19, have been frustrating for Spurs guard Derek White. His next goal is simply staying on the floor. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Tuesday, March 16th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.